Hello again and welcome back. We're going to continue our tour around the center of Copenhagen within this circle, and we left each other lately at this point, and I'm going to continue getting across over here and over here back to this place, and then I'm leaving you again for the later tour. So let's start out here and take this look down along the canal. This is the place which is, due to the legends, to the stories of Copenhagen, is where the fisherwomen, the fishing men and their women were selling their herrings way back when Copenhagen was grounded and founded. So this place is today a quite significant place of Copenhagen, a very beautiful one. And also in this case, you can see that there is the City Hall Tower. And this is one of the new metro stations that is called Gammel Strand. And we're going to continue from there to cross over and visit the islet here, the islet where the Christiansborg, the big palace, the parliament building is situated. Right now I'm standing where I looked this way before. I'm now looking this way before I cross over this bridge and continue to walk along Christiansborg. Christiansborg is this big building here. It's the palace that used to be a royal palace, but within the last 100 years or so, it has been the House of Parliament. And as you can see, it's a relatively big building. And one of the things that you should note, that in front of this building, there are these walls, and they are actually made up out of Bornholm granite. And what they are used for is actually some kind of a terror protection. So they are placed all along the edge of the square in front of Christiansborg, a place where usually many rallies and demonstrations and so forth takes place. So it's very often a place where there are very many people here right in front of the Parliament building. You can see the balls here from the other side, and I'm standing here now and I'm looking back towards the city, and that church that you can see here is situated right here, and that is very characteristic for Copenhagen also. And I'm probably going to say this a few times, so you may excuse me if you hear it again and again, but then you would know that it's a very important issue around Copenhagen, that is placed on a very flat land. And therefore, what is very characteristic for the skyline of Copenhagen is that there are many towers and many spires and many church bells and stuff that raises up into the air. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this when we come back to building upon the characteristics of Copenhagen, because the high-rise policy of Copenhagen municipality is also like coming out of that issue, the flat area with the many spires and the many towers and so forth. And this is one of them, a very beautiful one from 17th century. And we will walk along here, we will walk along the exchange building. And before we get there, you will actually see a statue of the king that I mentioned already, Christian IV. He was a big builder in Copenhagen, and many of the things and buildings and places and squares from the 16th century are actually initiated by Christian IV. And that is also what we see here. We see a very opulent master of universe standing on top of one of his towers, the round tower that we talked about earlier today. And we have the spire here, which is the one on the exchange building. and we have another spire of another church, which is also one of the churches that Christian IV actually got to build in Copenhagen in the 16th and 17th century. And another building which is exactly that king that raised is the exchange building, which is where I'm pointing right now. Renaissance, very inspired by Dutch Renaissance. And that's not a coincidence, because when we pass along here and cross this bridge, we will get into the part of the city where you have a lot of Dutch inspiration. And that is also due to, it's also due to Christian IV, who actually called Dutch architects and builders to Copenhagen to extend the city in the 16th and 17th century. Before we get exactly to the other side of the bridge, you can see that when we stand on the bridge and look in one direction and the other direction, you will have a very prominent view of Copenhagen, and you will see in this view some of the buildings that were built actually since 1992. You may recall that I talked about that in 1992, then Copenhagen was the cultural capital of Europe, and that was the kind of the kickoff for a lot of prominent building projects that kind of moved Copenhagen into another league. And those buildings that you see here are some of them. This is an extension of the Royal Library. It's called the Black Diamond, and we're going to see that a little bit later. And we have some pretty prominent office buildings along the harbor side, and you kind of change this atmosphere now. It's going a little bit from a very dense and narrow city to a much more open and prominent and proud city when you get to this point. And when you look in the other direction, you can see the opera. The opera is built by the beginning of this century. It is a gift from a very rich patron, and he paid everything and had a large battle with the architects about how to do it. The opera is placed here. So this building that you see here is here, and we're standing on the bridge to look down towards that building. And this side is over here. These are like warehouses. It's a very significant warehouse typology, warehouse architecture that you see demonstrated here, and also very characteristic for that part of the city where when the city meets the harbor. You can see it a little bit closer here, because you can see that all the buildings is in one direction, and that means that they were loaded from the harbor, and that warehouse typology is used very consequently also in new buildings to kind of take up an image or a pattern of what was there before and build on top of that to create a city that is both loyal to history but also modern, in the sense of it is an architecture that is demonstrating the time of the period of the centuries where it's built within. So we looked in this direction and we looked in that direction, and we're going to cross over and we're going to go down this street. And one thing that is interesting here is that this street here is called Strandgade. That means beach street. And that is actually because it used to be the waterfront. So everything that is beyond this line, actually all those warehouses I was just talking about, they are built on artificial extended land. And that means that this part of the street is older than this part of the street, because this part of the street is the one that is built on artificial land. We are crossing down one of the canals now. You could see that there are canals here, and one of the canals is this canal, and you can also see that also here you have this warehouse typology, because everything in this area was about trading and working with everything that had to do with the fact that Copenhagen is situated by the ocean, by the sea, and had this very significant role of being the customs place for the traffic going in and out to the Baltic Sea. So this canal is today filled up with private boats, and that is a very, you could say, popular and attractive thing about this area, that people who actually sail their own boats really want to live specifically in this area. This corner that you see here is this corner that you see that we are at here. So I've been through here and I walk by, and I'm going back along the canal to cross over one of the canals and go out here to the ramparts. But before that, I'm gonna show you a picture of this specific stroll here, which is also very, very cozy, and you have the canal down here. And when it's summer and good weather, people really enjoy sitting here and having drinks and fun and enjoy themselves. So from that point of view, it's also like a very social part of the city. And I'm crossing over this bridge now, looking down back this direction. And you can see that it's actually very peaceful. So peaceful that you can actually go kayaking here if you want to. And that is also extremely popular to row in your kayaks all around Copenhagen as such. I've done it several times myself. And from here we are passing over and down along this church. It's called the Christian's Church. And then you will probably note on this map that if you are a little bit familiar with Copenhagen, you probably recognize the name Christiania. And Christiania is the free town that was established back in 1997. Excuse me, 1975 it was. And the free town is placed in barracks that used to be the Navy's. So when the Navy left this area, private people took over, and it became kind of like a hippie place, which it still is. And there are very many funny and nice things going on out there. But unfortunately, there's also a lot of drug dealing. And that's the less nice part about this area which you see here. I would have wanted to show you pictures, but it's actually not allowed to take photographs within Christiania. So you have to imagine, and you have to visit Christiania when you get here at some point. I can only recommend visiting Christiania. I cannot recommend buying drugs from the drug dealers. So after passing through, I'm going to go up here on the ramparts, and this stretch here is that rampart that we see here, and this little island, the rabbit island, the Kaninø, that's that rabbit that you see here. So this is also like a part of the old fortifications of Copenhagen. In this case, it's the fortification of Christianshavn and all the Navy facilities that used to be placed in this part of the city. And then I'm gonna go back towards one of the canals, and because I want to cross over and get back to central Copenhagen again. And I'm gonna show you a little bit of a movie here to see how that is going, that is taking place. So I'm standing on one bridge which connects to another bridge and then again connects to a third bridge. So you actually have a bridge here that goes in 3 directions and crosses over 2 canals to make that happen. And that bridge is solely made for pedestrians and biking people. And you also get a pretty good feeling about the scale and the coziness of this area where Christiania and Christianshavn meet. So where we were right now is this place. This is one of the legs of the bridge. This is the other leg of the bridge. And then there is the third leg of the bridge. So I'm going to go back along this stretch here. And I'm going to cross over to get to the bridge, to get to the center of Copenhagen. In this case, over here, get to Nyhavn. People who have visited Copenhagen or would want to visit Copenhagen, all of them know that there is something called Nyhavn. And Nyhavn is very close to the Royal Playhouse, which is here, and is kind of like an entertainment area of Copenhagen. Many tourists go there. There's a lot of bars and restaurants and so forth. So let's cross over the bridge and look out over the canal. And that's where I am here. I'm looking back towards this building over here is the opera, and this building over here is the Royal Playhouse, which is there. And that means that this area is actually heavily dominated by huge cultural institutions. And this pier that you have here is one big space where you, in the summertime, you have a lot of outdoor theater going on in this area. And then you have the possibility to walk along the harbor here, and you actually passes by the Royal Palace, which is here, before you can get out to Castellet, where we are gonna go in the next little movie. So now I'm passing down along Nyhavn, and where I want to go is to Kongens Nytorv, which is a very, very beautiful square where you have many things going on, like flea markets and Christmas markets. And in the summer, when the students leave high school, they also dance around in this square, and it has a lot of traditions to it. And let's see what it looks like. I'm standing right at the edge of Nyhavn, and I would want to kind of look around, take a 360-degree view, pass by the French embassy and a number of restaurants. One of the most famous and expensive hotels in Copenhagen, 5-star, a big, huge department store, the old Royal Theatre, and the Royal Academy of Fine Arts. So you can imagine that that we're talking about something here which is high-end culture area in this part, and mostly older buildings except the Royal Playhouse and the opera, which were built within the last 20 years. So let's keep another break, and after a while we're gonna go out and see what it's like to walk along the fortifications. And that is the last part of my touring you around in the center of Copenhagen.